All right, so we're going to talk about today some of the things that are on my shelf. And the reason we're going to talk about that is, well, we'll say twofold. Number one, um, one of the things that I sacrificed playing baseball so long was sort of a stable life. So when I packed my bags and I had my rookie season, I left. I remember it was like 5 or 6 in the morning. It was still blackout, so it was probably more like 5. And I had my crappy little green Honda Civic packed. Every possession that I owned was in it. I was leaving from this little Baltimore room that I rented as I was working as a strength coach in a now defunct baseball facility called the Bat Academy. So I had my first contract with the Normal Corn Belters, which is a brand new team in the Frontier League. They still exist to this day. This is their 7th or 8th season now. That was back in, again, 2010. So I had everything packed up, and I was ready to leave. And as I pulled out, it was pitch black. It was raining, and all my possessions fit in that Honda. And I still had a passenger seat where I could have had a passenger. They would have been completely comfortable. There's not one thing in the passenger seat. Everything was in the trunk or the back 2 seats. So I really didn't have many possessions, as you can probably tell. So it was raining, and I was super excited. I was also super groggy, and I had like 13 hours of driving to go that day. And when I pulled out of my parking spot, I didn't check because it was 5 in the morning. I didn't check to see if there's anyone behind me. So and it was raining, it was dark. And as soon as I started to turn out, as soon as I get out of the spot, I see headlights, and I go, oh crap. And then I hear screeching tires, and then I go, oh crap. And then this car smashes into me, and it was just like, oh my god, Dan, you're such an idiot. You haven't even made it 5 feet, and you've already gotten in a wreck. Like, is this how this is going to go? So we get out, and Baltimore being what it is, the fellow was just like, look, let's not, involve insurance companies. Like, let's just go. Like, my car's fine, your car's fine, we're all fine. I'm like, okay, dude. Like, he hit my car. It was clearly my fault, but he wanted no part of it. So it was clearly, I'm sure he didn't have insurance. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to assume that my car is fine. It looked physically mostly okay. The bumper eventually needed to be repaired, but I just kind of prayed that nothing had been like banged out of shape that was going to be mechanical. So on I went, and my life was basically like that for the next 7 years. So I would have an apartment in the off season, and then I would leave that apartment, take everything with me, and not have apartment back home while I was out playing ball, because that was the cheapest way to do it. My rookie season, I only made $600 a month, so there was no way I could really like pay a rent. Even if it was like cheap, $300-400 a month, there's no way I could pay rent for an apartment I wasn't living in, and I didn't feel like doing the sublease thing or any of that. So basically, I had no possessions, and I didn't accumulate things, and I still don't really value possessions very much. I try to stay as, I don't know what the word is. We'll just say possessionless, but I try to not put a focus on things in my life. So, fast forward to this year, after having lived that same way for a long time and basically just being in an apartment for 5 or 6 months in the off season and not really wanting to put any effort into it because I was going to leave it anyway, I am finally like in a stable place, and I kind of have been the last 2 years. My business partner Lucas and I lived together for the last 4 years up until last July. And so I still had a room here while I was gone the last 2 seasons, but I had still like basically no possessions. Now I live alone, and I have like a kind of spacious, like 1 bedroom, very like open apartment, which is where I am right now. And I had to like outfit it for the first time. And I was actually dating someone when I moved in here. And so we kind of decorated ourselves. And then when we broke up a couple months ago, a lot of that decor kind of fled with her. So I had to redo this all myself. There was like no art on the walls. So I slowly figured it out. But it's weird because it's like people have shelves and people have desks and people have all these different things, and they put things on them. And those things that they put on, like little trinkets and stuff, like I'm like, I don't own any trinkets. I've never owned any trinkets. I've never owned stuff that I could put on a shelf or a table. Everything I have like has a utility. Like I have a pen, I have a book, I have a cup. Like here's my glass of carrot juice for the day, but I wouldn't put that on a shelf. So it's been this weird thing where like, what do I have to go buy trinkets to put on this lovely shelving unit that I created. I made that myself with wood and pipes. So very exciting. So it's like, how do I define me as a human in trinkets? So I attempted to do that. And then after I like spent like 3 weeks acquiring trinkets, I finally realized that I think did actually a decent job. And the trinkets that I have assembled are somewhat representative of me as a person. So I'm going to share a couple with you today. So number one, as you look back here, I have this weird Pez dispenser. Now this does not represent me as a person, but this was given to me by one of the girls that we train, a softball player she's really, really funny. And to me, this kind of just symbolizes the fact that I really enjoy working with young athletes because they all have different personalities. They all have their quirks. We all have like this similar bond where we love sports, and it's just such a fun job. So this to me kind of like symbolizes just the goofiness that it is working with young kids. So that's been fun. So Carson, thank you for the Pez. I have a couple of Baltimore things. This one's not going to come off the wall because I kind of taped it there because it's a weird aluminum crab. But I have my Old Bay. And if you don't know what Old Bay is, number one, shame on you. But number two, this is what they cover Baltimore blue crabs in. And then if you're like me, growing up in Maryland, you cover frozen pizza in it. Shrimp and like chicken, all this other stuff, but mostly frozen pizza. So this was like my childhood. It's a very dark, reddish, orangish color, and it's amazing. And you can't find it a lot of times anywhere but the Northeast. I think it's a little more mainstream now than it was a couple years ago, but I used to get Old Bay on my Subway sandwiches all the time because Subway tastes terrible. So I would get Old Bay on it. But when I'd be in like other states and like playing college baseball, we'd be in like New York, and I'd say, "Oh, can you put some Old Bay on that foot-long oven roasted chicken?" And they'd be like, "What?" And I just like blew my mind, and I was angry. But anyway, I have this book. This is one of my favorite books. This is called An Illustrated Book of Bad Arguments. And in this book, it's a bunch of weird animals demonstrating different logical fallacies. So if you don't know, I'm a philosophy and psychology major. I had a double major is what I graduated with from the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, the legendary team that upset Virginia this past year. And this book is A, kind of hilarious, but B, it is all about logical fallacies, which if you talk to someone for even 5 minutes, they'll probably spit out like 5 of these. And if you're ever in an argument with someone in like a party or just in a social setting and they want to like debate you, they're going to be using mostly logical fallacies. So this is why I tend to not talk to people that much. But for example, the slippery slope. If you let a bully come in your front yard, he will be on your porch the next day, and the day after that, he will eat your babies. And then here's the turtle. That escalated quickly. So, this to me just reminds me of my degree, which at the time, I just wanted to play baseball. And when I got to college, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I just chose a major that felt like okay for me. And University of Maryland, Baltimore County was kind of basic. And they just kind of, I don't know, they just offered the basics. There's nothing that, I didn't have any interest at that point. So I didn't know what to pick. But I liked humanities classes in high school. I liked, I just like one good teacher that I really liked. I had probably more than one good teacher, but I had one teacher that I really liked who taught, the teachings of Aristotle and Plato and all that stuff. So I was like, I kind of liked philosophy. Let's just do that. Since I hate school in general, that seems like the least of all evils. So I did, and it ended up being me, and it ended up being valuable because I don't remember much of that stuff. I couldn't tell you what Leibniz said about whatever Leibniz was talking about. I really can't recite any Kant or Descartes or Aristotle or Plato anymore. It makes me feel like a fraud. But it rewired my brain in a very real way where my writing is very deductive. It's very logical. I'm a very concise writer, so you won't find a ton of fluff in my articles unless I want there to be some sort of fluff. I feel like I'm very persuasive. I feel like I know how to convince somebody of something, and I'm very good at debating you, and I could make you feel like an idiot if you want me to. So as an entrepreneur and a writer and a course creator, I felt like it's given me the tools to sort of assemble everything in the proper order that it should go. So like with my online courses that I'm continuing to work on, it's really tough to say, okay, here's the start, here's the finish. How do I get a person there? What are the stepping stones? What are the headings and subheadings and all that sort of order? And I attribute my mediocre success thus far, but exceeding success in the future to my degree in philosophy. I think it was really valuable. I think it's really underrated as well. I have some other things here. This was the last glove my parents bought me, and it was going into my comeback season, which was 2014. So I wanted them to buy the last glove for me that I would ever have. I felt like it was going to be symbolic. I wanted to just kind of go out that way. Now, I ended up not liking the shape of this glove that much. It's actually one of the most hated gloves I've ever had. I hate this glove a lot. But it still has a lot of symbolism. It was kind of emotional that Christmas, getting my last glove from them. And on it, I wrote, "Go down swinging." So that was my goal. That I didn't know how it was going to turn out when I came back from Tommy John surgery number 2. And if I was going to go down, I wanted to go down swinging. So it was just like a little reminder for me. And it was just kind of a reconnection to my childhood that felt special. This, which is also taped, is one of my locker tags. That was from my time in Fargo, which was the worst season of my life. It was a half season. It was extremely trying. I pitched terrible. I felt extremely alone in that clubhouse. But I think locker tags are cool. So I had a new one each year. Most of the time they were nice like that. They had my name on it. But not all the time. But I have a couple of them that have survived, and so that one's prominent for me. There's a copy of my book, which I'm not here just hawking my book, but I'm proud that I've written a book. That was something that actually, it's really an interesting process. So in 2013, I was hurt. I was recovering from my second Tommy John, and we were going to have baseball camps for the first time with my facility, Warbird Academy. So I was like, okay, I gotta outline everything that our instructors need to know so we can, do this camp right. And they're all teaching the same thing. And so I started making an outline of stuff we were going to teach. And then I had like 12 topics. And then I made like little subtopics and subtopics. And so suddenly I realized, well, it grew to maybe 18. And I can't remember how many chapters are in that book, but it just grew. And I was suddenly I have 18 chapters or so. If I make each chapter 10 pages, this is a book. And then I just started writing, and I just started elaborating on all these different things, and the knowledge just kind of poured out of my brain. And then I think it only took me 6 weeks, and I had a book. Now, it took the rest of the year to get everything together, to plan out the photos, to take the photos, to insert the photos. My partner Lucas did all of the design work of the book. He created the cover. He's an incredible graphic designer. And he assembled all of it on Adobe InDesign. It was a process, 3 different edits all the way through. So it took a lot of time to go from that chunk to completion, but I wrote the thing in 6 weeks, and I can be a voracious writer at times when I have the right topic. So a couple other things. I have photos of my family here. I have very few photos in general, because why would I take a photo of myself? So I have whatever else other people take for me, I have as photos. I have this amazing Beatles lunchbox. I got this for, I think, $11. Brand new. So I do love classic rock, and I grew up with the Beatles and Bob Dylan and Led Zeppelin and all that stuff. I have this turtle that is filled with coffee beans. My sister gave it to me. And then lastly, I have some records up top of some of my favorite bands as well. Really just decor, whatever. But this, I decided, was a trinket that I needed to have on my shelf, because this, when we talk about things, like physical things that define us, this is one of them. So this was my arm brace. This is what I got from Dr. Kremchek, the Cincinnati Reds doctor who did my second surgery. And This was the thing that has made me the man I am today. The hardship that I suffered at the expense of my elbow, this is obviously the biggest symbol of this. And I've had some good times and some bad times wearing this little guy. And I can't really get into it that well because I need to take the straps out, but, it takes me back a little bit. So obviously this was not a fun time. It was not a time that I wish to relive. It wasn't a time that I was glad I lived. But when you're done, you realize again that the valleys in your story are what make the peaks that much better. So, I've talked about it before. In the grand scheme of things in baseball, like, I was a nobody, and I'm fine with that. I did as much as I possibly could. I got as much out of my body as I possibly could. And I think my elbow always sort of rose to the occasion. If that makes sense, because it's obviously not a person, but I got so much more out of it than I should have, and I'm thankful for that. So this is different for me, but I just wanted to share a little bit, because when you wonder over time, like, who you are as a person and what represents you and what do you stand for and all that sort of stuff. I was like, man, I don't know what to put in my apartment. Like, what represents me as a person? Now, physical things still don't, but these are all sort of tokens, like where I've been. My family has always been hugely supportive of me. My upbringing in Baltimore. I've lived here in the Midwest for 7 years now. My passion for writing and for coffee and for turtles, and just for reminding myself of even the hard times, because those are important too. So it's everything in life is about how you respond to things. So even when you have tough times, when your arm's destroyed, or you have one of those moments, and I've had a couple others that were just personal moments that weren't baseball related, that were just like, oh, I'm that guy. I'm having that thing that I hoped would never happen to me. It's happening to me. Those are always kind of a wake up. All right. So anyway, what's on your shelves?